What's going on here? Am I doing it right?
Yeah, I'm really good at ball handling. But
I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Who do I have in that matchup?
For whoever, whenever.
Like, there's nothing nobody from Michigan can say anything to me. Like,
and let's be honest, the Detroit Lions are just not like a great franchise.
Make sure to listen to the
Speakeasy podcast.
I wanted him to fight Khabib. But,
who you root for in that matchup?
McGregor.
This is number one bullshit.
Yeah, sure. Like don't ever give up. I mean,
Yeah.
on transition to MMA, Jorge Masvidal got his first title shot. Freaking like, was it 17 years? He's been doing it.
Yeah. There's this like it would have really been cool. I really don't think it matters that he lost like as far as his stock. You know what I mean? But I was like, before, like, who do you want to win? I'm like, if Jorge Masvidal wins the 170-pound title, it's just the greatest narrative in MMA ever.
All day.
Right? There's nothing that could compete with a guy who's been at it that long. And I'm also a big fan of Michael Bisping. Like, I think it trumps even that because it was like,
For sure.
Bisping was always in it and still had, like, before he beat Luke Rockhold, had beat, Anderson Silva and had more high profile wins, I guess you'd say. But like, I remember watching Jorge Masvidal, just a couple of years ago, and he's like keeping it close to Stephen Thompson, but like, you just didn't see him as like, you wouldn't have looked at him and been like, oh, this guy's going to be challenging. Like, you understand that he's good, but you would just consider him a level below the elite. And it was just crazy to watch his rise. And also, like, having followed him for a while now, like, I would notice that if I ever like commented on his page or something, he would always like or respond or something, he has this effect on people where it's so funny because, like, compared, like, people hate on Kamaru Usman, and it's like, this dude, like, he's so nice, and like, he's got the wrestling background. He's done nothing except like maybe try to be too hard when like his real character is just like, you're this humble dude, like, play the immigrant, but now you're talking shit and people don't like it, but like, people hate on him. You know what I mean?
It's like DC too.
Like, yeah, I know. It's like, it's funny how we want some dudes to just be the nice guy, and when they try to talk shit, we're like, no, that's not your lane.
Yeah.
And the opposite with John Jones. Like, whenever I see John Jones try to be nice, I'm like, no, you're a sociopath. We love it.
I hate it, man. I fucking hate it, dude. I'm like, bro, just be you, man. Because
no disrespect, telling DC he can slap your wife's ass and and you can't do anything about it. Like, that's one of the coldest disses you can say to somebody. To a man with you beaten in the cage, like, I could fuck your wife in public. But then he'll do shit like, even the like, here's me handing out food to the homeless. It's like, good, but like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to craft this image.
Yeah.
To make us think you're a good guy, and you're just not that. Like, you do cocaine all weekend and then go beat Alexander Gustafsson. Like, that's okay.
That's also badass. You know what I'm saying? Like, let people who are fans of that shit be fans of that,
Yeah. So I think his whole thing is interesting. Like, there's just, when I think about John Jones, I just think about, like, there's a certain coldness there. You know what I mean? That fits the image of somebody who, like, just never loses, and always comes through, and you can get a couple rounds upon him, but, in the end, he's going to dominate you. So with Masvidal, I just feel like he won by being genuine. You know what I mean? Like, it may have taken a longer time, and like, it was really interesting following the Colby Covington beef, because you're just like, I don't know who really likes Colby as a person, because you're just like, this dude comes across so whiny and complain, and I can appreciate the gimmick, but at the same time, it's like, you guys see who he is. Like, nobody likes that dude. Yeah. Nobody's going like, Colby's a really good guy. Everyone's like, his own teammates hate him. Like, everyone,
I like commented on some stuff because I got like the sports podcast, and I mean, I'm big on MMA, so we post MMA a lot, and like, I'll say Colby's a cuck. You know what I'm saying? I think it's fucking hilarious. But dude, people will fucking, and I'm nobody, dude. I got like 800 followers. People fly in my inbox like, fuck you, dude. You don't know him. Fucking, he's a nice guy. Yeah. I'm like,
and it's like, not really though. Like, he can, like, now I'll say this. I know what they probably are referring to, because he'll like sign autographs and kind of come off as more humble, but it's like,
yeah,
because okay, you don't have the full energy just to be an asshole to everybody, but like, I believe when you hear two conflicting things between like Masvidal says one thing and Colby says the other, and they're directly opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like who helped who or whatever. And when Masvidal tells their story and however they had like, I'm even trying to think of like, what was the initial falling out? Like I forget what the exact instances, but there was a moment where they went from like, that was fairly recent, right? Where they were still buddies.
I think Masvidal was going for the title shot, and then Colby was like, he's a jobber or some shit like that. He's like subpar 500 or something like that.
Yeah. So Colby took the turn into kind of like talking shit about him, and it just seemed like it came from jealousy.
Yeah.
You know, even now, like, what does Masvidal have? Like 2 million more followers than him just on Instagram or whatever. It's like, because Colby's doing this gimmick, and it's like, you could argue it's working, but like, you don't know that it's necessarily working more than just like not doing that would, because you're a really good fighter. You know what I mean?
It's like you said, I respect it, if I don't necessarily have to like it, you know?
Yeah. And like, he does have an exciting style. He puts the pressure on. I remember thinking like that RDA was actually going to mop him up, and being kind of shocked that like, holy fuck, this dude just put it on, you know, one of the best.
That's when he gave my respect, because I was kind of butthurt too, because I was like, because Colby before I was talking shit about Brazilians. I'm like, oh, here we go, here goes RDA, like.
But yeah, I fully expected him to, because RDA seemed like he was just keeping his cool and everything, and I was like, I just fully expect RDA to win, and he wanted to win because he's the good guy in that scenario.
Yeah.
But like, Colby really proved himself that he's like, he didn't let up for a second that entire fight.
Not
like it was hard to watch almost, you know, because you're like, man, I watch you
just
to
that's
fight
what it was
back.
for me. He had him up against the cage, and I'm like, oh fuck, get up,
Yeah.
get up.
And it's like, this is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, like,
yeah,
good grappler, and he's just getting like terrorized, you know.
I was like, 2 years, because they're talking about Colby and Tyron might happen. I was like, 2 years ago, I would have said Tyron would mop him. Now,
same, yeah. I used to look for. I was like, man, I can't wait till Tyron gets in there and fucking knocks him out. I'm like, it's hard. It's actually hard for me to picture Tyron beating Colby, just because of like, now you see that kind of style, and like, just that, you know, someone like Gilbert Burns, you know, pressuring him, being aggressive. You know, these guys, who knows? I still would love to see that fight, just for the hope that Colby would get knocked out by Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess in that sense, the gimmick is effective.
Yeah.
But like, when I watched the Kamaru Usman Colby fight live,
how crazy was that, dude? The ending,
that was such a good fight. Yeah. Like, we were, me and everyone I was watching it with were up on our feet, like, oh shit, you know.
Yeah, dude. And he did it. I expected it to be like a wrestle, like a.
Yeah, same. I'm like, I was like, I wanted to see who the better wrestler was, but I do think it's smart, because it's like, they're probably pretty equal. I would probably, even though Colby made this big deal about he's a D2 scrub, I'm a D1 stud, Kamaru trained at the Olympic Center. And when you can tell in his style of wrestling, like, Colby's very takedown heavy, like get to the legs, and usually basically just pressure people to like against the fence and use it as a setup for his, like, you know, he's always like, he's just like going for the double leg, coming up, going for the double leg, coming up. He doesn't physically dominate in the same way that Kamaru like picks people up off the ground.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He picked Tyron Woodley's an All-American D1 wrestler.
Yes.
He lifted him off the fucking ground several times.
And
just ragdolled him.
Yeah.
So I do think Kamaru is stronger. You know, I do think he's potentially a better wrestler with a more like polished world elite level style, because when you go to that, I don't think he actually made it to the Olympics, but I know people who have gone to the Olympic training center, and it's like, that's all you do all day, and you're not just around like the best college wrestlers, you're around other dudes trying to make it to the Olympics or who have competed in the Olympics. So my guess is that actually Kamaru is better than Colby at wrestling, and potentially like the best wrestler in the UFC, maybe other than Khabib, you know. But I think Khabib's the best, because that's like, he has MMA wrestling down the best, where everything he does is geared towards like a 10-step process in which he's taking your limbs away, and all of a sudden you're just being pounded in the head, right?
Yeah, and talking to you too, like,
right? Yeah, his ability to just slowly take away every single limb that you have to protect yourself and render you helpless, like systematically.
Dude,
where like
insane.
Kamaru will stand and strike. Kamaru against Damian Maia, like he didn't, he will stand and strike with people who are a grappling threat or who he perceives as a grappling threat. But like Khabib literally goes out and does the same thing every single time.
You can't do anything. That's the craziest part about Khabib is like you literally know what he's gonna do, and
Yeah,
guys can't do anything about it. And you have a whole training camp prepared for this too.
yeah,
On top of you being one of the best of the best in the UFC,
yeah.
Khabib's insane.
Yeah, like because people will talk about like, oh, well, Conor doesn't have a ground game. The dude's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu brown belt. Like he's been training jiu-jitsu as long as he's been in MMA. You know what I mean? So you can't be like, he has no ground game. Like he knew that was coming. He's been training for Khabib. He has elite partners. Like I'm sure he's brought a bunch of people in. Like to say that he has no ground game. It's just, but even then, like that one, he had that fight against Abel Trujillo.
Is that the guy he took down a bunch of times?
Yeah, like 28. It's like that's a D1 wrestler too. Like,
insane.
Did you hear about him? By the way, he like got arrested for like child porn.
What?
Yeah,
that's
it's crazy. I mean, that's a whole separate conversation. But
way to kill the fucking mood, man. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, man, he got busted. He ain't gonna be fighting anytime soon.
Speaking of fights, who do you have this weekend? Till and Whittaker.
I love both those guys, and I feel like the sentiment that I keep seeing that I'm like, I totally agree with that is like, the teardrop over the fact that one of them has to lose.
Yeah.
I do ultimately think though that Robert has more tools. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's potentially faster. Some analysis that I've seen that I agree with is like first of all, when I think of a Robert Whittaker highlight reel, like his speed and like aggressiveness, like when he goes on a blitz, like I think he just fucks people up,
Yeah.
And he was able to damage Yoel Romero, which everyone talks about, like
those fights are crazy.
touch him and they're like, that dude hurt me, like trying to hit him,
Yeah.
like so, but I think his overall body of work, like there is just something reminiscent of like, he's got like that Maori in him. That like you just like he fights like a warrior. You know what I mean? And I think you either got to fucking knock him out like Adesanya did, and I do think he fought a little emotionally in that fight. Like going against probably the best counter striker in the UFC. Like him and McGregor, arguably. Just off the top of my head, but it's like his ability to blitz and close a distance. He's got high kicks that he's used effectively, to at least put guys, on ice skates, like I think he did against Jacare. He is a good wrestler. Like I think he like represented Australia in the Olympics or something like that. Like
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, like he was competing at least with the Australian national team in some form. So like in his spare time, he competes in wrestling, and I think that's the reason. Like the first fight against Romero, like Romero was trying to wrestle him a lot, and like it wasn't that effective because like Whittaker has good takedown defense, and he's able to. So I see Whittaker as more like a kryptonite to Till in the same way that Woodley was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where like his ability to like cover distance really quickly and land really hard shots, kind of like Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like Masvidal got put down a couple times, but was able to answer with like, you look at that knockout and like he like, I'm going to struggle defining the exact move, but I know it was like he just covered the distance so quickly and caught Till off guard. I think Till does best when he's able to physically bully the other guy, like he did against Cerrone, where he's like, he backs you up, and kind of like takes away your escape route and then is landing shots right in front of you.
Yeah.
But not necessarily. And he's also a very like, he's good at maybe like, again, in a match like Stephen Thompson, which arguably Thompson won.
Dude, I thought the same thing too watching that one.
Yeah, like, but it's really close, and it's like that's because that plays to his style, where Stephen Thompson is going to keep. They're both kind of keeping that, the Muay Thai or the wide stance distance. They're fighting a safer fight, and even against Gastelum, like as I was watching, I'm like, fuck, he's got the perfect game plan because anytime Kelvin gets in, he's grabbing the collar tie, you know, and neutralizing that close range boxing. He was able to, like, he's such a big dude. You see, like, even still at 185, he's very broad and like big. I just don't think he's going to be able to physically bully Whittaker enough to like land the kind of shots that he's been successful with. So, exactly. But I still think it'll be a very good fight.
Oh, for
what
sure.
do you think?
Man, I don't always like giving predictions because like I try to get these guys on the shows and I don't really want to like leave anyone butthurt. But I mean,
yeah, I know. Even then, I'm like, because I don't know. Like that's why I watch UFC, is because I have no fucking idea.
I love it.
All the best fights, you're like, I'm leaning one way or the other, but the UFC is great at getting close matches that you want.
Yeah.
Like,
But I completely agree with your theory of like Whittaker and just his overall body and resume. He's just a beast, dude. I mean, we were talking before. He survived Yoel twice, you know. So it's like
So it's like if Yoel can't put Whittaker away, and I mean Adesanya, like I've looked at the knockout, like fucking Adesanya had to like hit him with the Matrix.
Dude, it was crazy.
Like,
some Matrix shit. And kind of yeah.
So I do think Adesanya just keeps proving himself over and over to like be, whether it's a boring fight or not, like, like his last, some people criticizing, but it's like he does what he has to do. Exactly. You know what I mean? He's hitting.
People bitch about Kamaru too. I'm like, what's like? I mean, what the fuck you want me to do? You want me to stand and let like one of the best strikers?
I know. It's like you're the champion.
Like,
you have a huge incentive when you're a smart champion to like. What incentive do you have to like go out and like fight recklessly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think he did stand with Colby just because they like. I feel like they both knew it was going to be a huge energy step to try to wrestle with each other.
Yeah.
But that made for such an amazing fight. Like I went back and watched only the significant strikes. Like have you ever seen those cuts on YouTube where they go like it's Colby and Kamaru, but like 4 minutes straight of just them hitting each other.
Yeah.
They got everything else, and like they fucked each other up. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, you deal with a wrestler, and it's like that's the smart thing. You have to expect that. Luckily, I think it's impossible for me to picture Whittaker until being boring because although,
Whittaker's a savage, man.
Yeah, like Whittaker is going to push the pace, regardless. And he's shown that he's willing to risk it.
Yeah.
He's going to risk getting hit and risk. He's just more, his offensive output is higher in all situations, whereas Till is more like situational,
Yeah.
If he's opening to advance and bully his opponent, he will. But like, I just feel like Whittaker is, if anything, Whittaker is going to push the pace and, force the offense. And it'll be really, because again, like Till has said, he's like, if I win, like, I basically deserve a title shot. You can't necessarily disagree with him.
You can't.
Like, okay, you beat Whittaker.
The only guy I'd feel bad for is Jared Cannonier. But
he deserves it for sure.
Bro, how about
it's just nobody knows who he is.
Yeah, I know, man. It sucks because he was on that. He was getting there too because he did this shit to Anderson Silva. Who Jack Hermanson, who I thought was going to be like the Habib of 185. He destroyed him, and then he got hurt. I think he was scheduled to fight Till, and then he got hurt too. His shoulder, Cannonier was.
Yeah, was that it? I was trying to think of who. I mean, that sounds familiar. I just remember looking forward to whatever fight he was because I forget when the first time I saw him, but I'm like, holy shit, this dude hits hard. And then you look back, you're like, oh, he was a heavyweight last year or whatever. Heavyweight,
it's like every fucking division. I'm like, insane.
Yeah, and he was big. I mean, it's just funny because it just goes to show you, like,
it's like different.
He had the same muscle mass and was like, I mean, it's not like he sucked at heavyweight. I have to imagine he was winning some fights. I don't know his exact record, but like he was winning fights at heavyweight, and now is like 8% body fat, 85-pounder, looking jacked as fuck. What was his last victory?
Cannonier, I think his last victory was Hermanson. I think that was the last one. Yeah, because Hermanson came off that dominant win over Jacare, which I didn't see coming. I kind of know Hermanson at that time. And then I expected to see the same thing, against Cannonier, but Cannonier just wasn't having it. I don't remember how the fight went, but I think
I'm gonna have to rewatch that one. But I remember watching it live and like every time I've seen him fight, I've just been impressed. Which also makes me think of the Hermanson fight recently, because everyone, like, the big buzz was like, oh, is Gastelum out of it? And I feel like, the great thing about the UFC is, like, you can lose 3 times in a row and like, I would still watch fucking Kevin Gastelum tomorrow.
Day, yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you got caught with a heel hook or whatever, but Gastelum has given the closest fight to Israel Adesanya out of anybody, right?
Yeah.
Like he almost, you know, I mean, he like put him on his ass. He fucking fucked his face up. Like nobody's been able to get in on him at all like that.
This is huge. Speaking of Izzy, I mean,
Yeah.
guys, looking down the line, maybe a little bit too soon here, but are you nervous for him with Costa coming up?
This is one that like, you know that meme where like the guy's like on his back, like, and the girl's like, I wonder what he's thinking about. You know?
Yeah.
This is one that'll keep me up at night because I go back and forth between like, I was watching some Costa highlights and I just like, I'm not saying there is no one else that fights like him, but maybe you have another idea. Cause I was just like, I don't know who else like fights like that where you have brawlers, you know, like Mike Perry kind of comes to mind. Where these dudes who kind of just like, they stand maybe a little more flat-footed and they're just like swinging for the fences, but it's like that brawling style just like on a different level where it's like it just looks like every fucking like hook he throws, it's like a baseball bat that he's trying to knock somebody's head off.
Crazy, dude. And he's
and the kicks. And he can take a shot. Like, I guess there was points where Yoel did some damage to him, but like he walked down Yoel Romero. You know what I mean? Like he absolutely stalked him and he did the same. Like, so that's a guy where you go like Khabib, you're like, everyone knows what's coming and he's not adjusting his style to you at all.
Yeah.
He's just going to impose his will. I watched because Joe Rogan was like, that what they did with him and fucking Johnny Hendricks just wasn't even fair. Like this was like a former fucking title challenger. Did Hendricks have the belt at any point?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, yeah. But he was like he just gave GSP close fights, right? And,
yeah.
And he was like, he made him look like a child. And he did. Like I watched the fight and I'm like, holy fuck, he just absolutely like it looked like Johnny Hendricks wanted to jump out of the cage and like get away. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh my God, like it looks like you're in there. It's like watching like a kid fall in a fucking cage with a lion or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you're concerned for the other party.
It was nasty.
And I just feel like he's been able to do that to everyone. And just the fact that like you go up against a guy like Yoel Romero, who again, just like he's the only dude who just people come out of a fight with him and they're like, yeah, it's like hitting a wall or something like that. Like,
yeah, it's kind of crazy to hear people say that too. Is like fucking like
and then did you hear the thing on Joe Rogan where like the doctor who looked at his like eye, he was like his tendons in his eyeballs are like 4 times as thick.
Yeah, they're like it's like fucking like sitific. Like he's saying some crazy shit. Like,
and you believe it because you're like, you know, even though he got popped for steroids, like I do believe. I mean, he won that lawsuit where it's like for a while people are like, oh, he's on steroids. Steroids can't even give you that kind of body. You know what I mean? Like his waist is this big, his shoulders are this big, his neck is this big. And I've watched film of him wrestling because he was, you know, like, do you remember it's Cale Sanderson, I think his name is. The guy who won every
he's the one.
match.
He beat Cale Sanderson, right?
Yeah. So it's like he like goes to, you know, this dude wins every single one of his matches in college, and then Yoel comes out and whoops him. Now they went back and forth at some point, but like Yoel, I think, has 2 victories over him, which is just shows you how elite Yoel Romero is as a wrestler. And you look at him, you know, back in the early 2000s or whatever, he looks exactly the same. So I just do think there's like this freak genetic element to it where he is just like absolutely built for competition. And you hear him on the Joe Rogan Experience talking about like the hierarchy of Cuban.
In the wrestling pyramid or whatever. Like
where it's like, you want to eat 4 meals? Be number 1. You want to eat 2 meals? Be at the bottom. You want air conditioning? Like, you know, so I just feel like that setup is just going to be, and they also just like, you're getting plucked. If you look like that, you know, it's like, hey, you come here, you're wrestling. Like, we're taking you away from your parents.
Hell
So that's all just to set up the fact that like Paulo Costa, and again, people will look at him and be like, oh, he's on steroids. Is it possible to just consistently cheat in the UFC now? Like, I feel like with USADA and like, I think it's when they're fucking catching John Jones and Pico. I don't even think John Jones cheated. I think it's, you know, he really did take a tainted supplement because I just don't think guys like that, like if you were at the top, you would need to take like some, you know, like tiny little bit, you know, like, cause like they're going to detect everything. It's almost like with the Nate Diaz thing where they like the fight with Jorge was almost off. Cause like the tests are so good that they catch these tiny contaminations, and they're not differentiating between like this is such a minute amount that it wouldn't. So anyway, that's all this to say, like, Israel Adesanya will make fun of Paulo Costa and be like, you big steroid monkey,
juice
like,
monkey. Yeah,
he just balloon animal. To me, he just looks like a gigantic jacked dude who like gets up to like 230 and then somehow cuts down. Like,
I don't know how the hell he makes that weight,
but
dude.
he looks gigantic at 185.
Yeah.
Like he just looks, I mean, he makes Yoel, like he dwarfed Yoel Romero and was able to like.
Bro, yeah, and I didn't think I'd see that either. He was so much bigger than Yoel, or taller wise too.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's all this to say. This dude is so scary and walks everybody forward and has this like fearlessness, but I still think Israel will win because like the fact that he has to like set everything up with like when he's swinging, his effectiveness is that he winds up, that it's coming and he's cornering you. And we just saw with the Robert Whittaker fight that like, again,
yeah, the Matrix shit.
The Matrix, like I just don't see him getting hit with something that he can see coming. And I think Israel's like, it was interesting hearing Israel talk about his like, his mantra of like, I eat pressure, it's an acquired taste. And he say also like, I let my nuts hang, which he did when he came out to that fucking, the dance,
Dude, that was dope as shit. Your biggest fight of your life, and you're just doing like a backflip and just because people can make the fun of you for like ever.
Right. That's what his point was. He was like, somebody was saying it's cringe, and he's like, the only reason it's cringe is because in your head you'd be thinking about what if I lost.
Yeah.
But he went out and was so confident in himself that he like put on a dance performance before the biggest fight of his life. Dude. I think it speaks to his mentality and his confidence, and the fact that he was like, when I was in China. Because you forget, like he's not like super young. We're like just hearing about him. He's 9 fights in the UFC or in MMA. He doesn't have that many fights. But he said he was like, I was doing this kickboxing shit in China, like at these huge arenas, the biggest arenas in China, and like they would bring me in for their star, and I would fuck him up. So like I think he's been through that racket before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just one of these guys where like I just don't think pressure gets to him in the same way that like Conor McGregor on his rise up to, his first 2 belts, like thrived off of that in some way and really didn't get the moment, like let the moment get to him, where I feel like someone like Whittaker, even though he's obviously very mentally strong, like had those amazing performances, like there is this element of like, you could tell that he was like not his best self when he faced Adesanya, and Adesanya had gotten his head a little bit and he got emotional, and that I just don't see Adesanya reacting like that. And they both hate each other.
Yeah.
And I think that I can see Adesanya being the dude to like not get hit and have enough movement, because Adesanya has adjusted his style to everybody, and everybody has been like, well, this is going to be, this wrestler, Derek Brunson's going to take him down,
That's what I thought too. I was like, damn, he's about to face a wrestler, and this wrestler's going to wrestle fuck him, like the whole.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Fucking couldn't get the takedowns either. He was going for him too.
Yeah. So he's been. I mean, has he like he's only been taken? Gaslam took him down, right?
Gaslam took him down, and he caught him in like some crazy like weird triangle. And Gaslam's like, "Oh fuck! Like this is not. I don't want to be here right now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like Adesanya has sort of proven everyone wrong at every step, and I thought Whittaker was going to beat him.
Yeah. I mean, I
didn't really have a good reason to think that. Like in retrospect.
Yeah. It's just so crazy his ascend, how he's just fucking like just doing.
Yeah, and also you look at him and you forget, like, I mean, sometimes you do, like I realize, like, or people will meet him and be like, yeah, he is really big. Like he's like 6'4" and his shoulders are big. He looks skinny, and you kind of from afar, you're like, oh, here's a skinny dude. Like John Jones isn't that much bigger than him. You know what I mean? Maybe like the huge reach, but like, you forget the most 85-pounders are like 6 feet tall or less, and this dude's just like several inches taller than him, and he's probably just stronger than you would expect. Like Costa has these muscles and looks the part, but if I had to bet money, I would say Costa's not going to be able to do the exact same thing, because I think
I can't wait, man.
Yeah, no, I can't wait, because it's like it's also totally possible that he will he will just absolutely find a way, but like seeing the fact that like Adesanya could do like a leaning back fucking hook.
KO, yeah.
And I had to like see it from multiple angles. I'm like, he knocked Robert Whittaker out. Like, like it wasn't like he just put him to sleep, but he fucking fully like collapsed him.
Yeah.
With a leaning back punch like this. You know, it like looked like he just like swiped him. So there's something to that. I mean, it's kind of like McGregor. Like when you watch that Aldo knockout, like it doesn't look like that hard of a hit, but like his accuracy of getting him right on the button to put his lights out.
Same way when he knocked out Brunson. It didn't look like he was hitting him hard at all, but he just must have been the way he was connecting, or just precision, I guess. What Conor kept saying with that, he's his precision and timing was what Conor kept saying with the Aldo thing. He's like, Aldo's faster than me, but I'm more precise or something like that. I get
precision beats speed. You know, I remember that little saying too. But it is true where it's like, you know, when if you're only hitting somebody in the temple, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you have a strong enough neck, like you can absorb that, but nobody's chin is strong enough to survive that small displacement or whatever that hits that nerve.
Yeah.
You know, but if you got a strong ass neck and you're only getting like somebody on their temple or their forehead or whatever, and I think that's kind of more of Costa's game. It's just like to like break somebody with the overwhelming like, you know, hook on hook on hook, and you're just like, oh please, like stop beating my ass.
Yeah. I'm about to watch that Costa Romero fight now. We're done.
Yeah, I want to watch that too, and that's another one too. Like speaking of like Gaston like losing 3, it's like Romero can lose all the fights he wants. We don't give a fuck because it's like he's never not been in a close fight. You know what I mean? He's either won or it's been super close. And with somebody like Costa, like he got backed up a lot, but at the same time it was action packed. You know what I mean? And I think also it was interesting hearing about the breakdown of like the Cuban style of wrestling is like they're taught to like, you know, because you're in tournaments or whatever, like the way that they teach them how to wrestle is like win by the smallest amount that you can to conserve your energy. You know what I mean? Like
that's crazy.
Win each round, win by the 1 point or whatever. And that is a smart move because like, yeah, if you're, you know, you're doing an Olympic tournament or something like that, and you're like, or you're doing some world tournament and it's like you might have 3 matches that day. Like don't expel all your energy or do enough to win that round and it's still a W. And I feel like Romero does that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he will conserve his energy, and sometimes he just comes out slightly on the wrong side of that equation.
Yeah. With the decisions and shit.
So, and you bring it up before. Do you think Romero won the either the fights with Whittaker?
I think he won the second one.
Yeah.
It was just fucking like. I mean, I'm sorry, I swear a lot. I mean, I can swear on my show anyway, but like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. He threw like Whittaker like it was just like kind of like mopping around the whole fight, you know. It's like, bro.
Yeah, there was moments where I think it was more again, like I was saying, if we scored it like one championship, the total damage, I think he definitely would have at least won the second one. But it's just that 10-9 must system where it's like,
yeah, and I don't even really understand that too, because I actually had Dean Thomas on and try to have him explain it to me. He's like, honestly, not some fighters, like none of us really know how it like works.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like I understand this system, like they assign points, but like nobody seems to have a solid explanation of like what is a takedown worth, what is a head strike, what is a kick, what are all these things that like in boxing it's just so much easier to quantify that because it is just punches, you know, and it does come down to like you can basically count the punches and get a rough idea. If it's close, okay, yeah, you know, maybe it's a little harder, but like if somebody lands 10 more significant strikes in a boxing match, the round is clearly going to them. But that's not always the case in MMA. And then when you have these, like, did you see the Andrade versus Namajunas,
the most recent
second fight?
Yeah.
Like one person had Andrade winning that. Like you just have these, that's just one example of like, what fight were you watching? You know, or you have it completely like 2 judges will say this and then the other judge says the complete opposite. That seems to happen. I mean, I know they say boxing's corrupt, but like I'm not watching that much boxing to where, you know, and I remember like the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury first fight was like, you know, judges were kind of all over the place, but it just seems like there's not this codified thing, and like the judges don't know jiu-jitsu, for example, but then some of them do. I've also heard that like you get these guys and it's like, this dude used to compete, he knows jiu-jitsu, is all this, but it's still this level of subjectivity that goes into even like a system that's probably just, I just think something where it's like total damage would be a more fair way to look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's a fight.
Like,
it's like,
who would win a street fight? Like,
yeah,
the guy who brought you closer to the brink of death.
yeah.
You know?
Do you think Max is robbed?
That's one that, as I was watching it, I did. Like, I was fully I thought it would have been obvious, but then I need to watch it again. But as I was watching it, I was like, definitely saw that like Max made the adjustments in the first 2 rounds, and he seemed way more confident, and he just changed his game plan. Like the first performance of that was brilliant. I thought that Volkanovski won every round, you know, like closely, but it was like I just noticed that every time Max came in, Volkanovski, like for every 2 times that Holloway would land, he'd make sure to get 3 in, you know, and separate on him striking and pushing him away. So every time Max came in, he would like hit, you know, clinch, hit, kick. And so I felt like he executed this perfect strategy, kind of like the Gastelum Till fight, where it's like, it was close, but to me, Till clearly, like every time they locked horns, Till was getting this much better, you know, of the exchange. So I felt like that was the first fight. And then the second fight, just visually as I'm watching it, and maybe like, okay, you talk to your friend for a second, you miss 1 or 2 things, but like my impression throughout, I was like, oh, Max obviously, that's cool. You know, like before they raised his hand, I'm like, now we maybe get a 3rd fight, whatever.
Yeah.
But just watching it without thinking too much, because after the first 2 rounds too, my brain was primed to be like, Holloway's got this, because he obviously won the first 2 and like made the adjustments. So you're almost like paying attention less to like,
yeah. I was thinking that too. I was like, maybe because I know Volkanovski for sure won the last 2, and I can't tell you who for sure won the 3rd because I don't remember it. Because like you said, Max kind of definitely won the first 2. He knocked him twice, didn't he? Like,
yeah. There was a knockdown, and he was just in that mode, you know, where like Max is like mocking, where he does the like, like where Volkanovski like fainted a little bit, you know, and so he just seemed like he was having fun.
I don't know if he slowed down or like, I don't know what happened.
But that's one that I need to watch again. I'm going to watch Romero Whittaker 2 again and see who really won, and see, you know, because again, there's also like when you're watching it in the moment,
watch them all the time too.
You're watching it for the entertainment value. You know what I mean? And you're not necessarily watching it like, if I was a judge and I had to like mentally keep track of strikes, you know, or you know, octagon control or whatever, what would I be thinking? But that's one that I definitely watch again. Are there any other controversial ones?
I feel like such a nerd because I do that shit too. I'll be like, when I was going to the gym, if I was on the treadmill, I was like, dude, let me fucking watch this and like just finally figure out who like won. You know, like But I like. I mean, that's you know, I love it for that.
One of the cool things about UFC is like, because I want to be able to have that conversation and like actually back it up. If somebody asks me, you know, like watching it, I wasn't shocked that like Whittaker won, but like, again, you do have to watch these. Anytime I watch the fight the second time, like you're always noticing shit that you just didn't see the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of have to like see it as a whole. You know what else is cool? I love when I watch breakdowns on UFC, Dan Hardy does some of the best breakdowns, you know?
Yeah.
And he had the ref on, the British guy, what's his name? Mark something?
Mark Harley.
Yeah. And he had him on to break down Gastelum versus Adesanya.
Mm-hmm.
And he like knew the whole fight. He was like, and then you're going to see here, like when he lands, like he almost had like every move of the fight memorized.
It's insane.
You know, and it was so crazy. And just to hear his thought process, you're like, you know, I don't know that much about individual judges. They get shit on a lot. And referees, I think, get shit on less so usually when it's like a bad stoppage, like Peter Yan versus Aldo. People were like, you know, he was just waiting for him to fucking bash his brains in.
Oh
you
my!
Also understand, because you're like, man, you want like the championship fight. This dude's a legend. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt. You would go a little bit longer. He just kind of he went from like early stoppage to normal stoppage to like 2 steps beyond. You know?
Yeah.
But you know, and again, because you know the worst thing I think I'm not the worst thing, but like it sucks if you stop it early by accident,
Yeah.
right? And there's I think like
'Cause
Dominic
it takes
Cruz
so long
got
to get
stopped
back there
early
too.
with
Sometimes for
Cejudo.
guys.
Yeah, like because that was one where it's like so Dominic Cruz got dropped, but he was like coming back up as it got stopped.
Yeah.
Versus something like when I watched it in the moment, my brain thought TJ Dillashaw got stopped early against Cejudo, but then I watched it again. I'm like, no, he got dropped like 3 times in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he was instinctually lizard brain grabbing for a single leg, not actually like defending himself.
Yeah.
And same thing with like, you know, Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. Like, it's not the distance you got dropped. It's just that you got dropped, 30 seconds ago, and then again.
Yeah.
And then you're taking, 10 unanswered shots to the head.
Exactly. At one
so
point,
anyway, it was
brain damage.
Yeah. At that point, it's like, if you're like this, just taking shots, what do you want to do? But yeah, the way he broke it down, I'm like, fuck, there is kind of this next level. Like, this is the type of mind that you think should be reffing. And I think John McCarthy also, like, anytime you hear him talk, these guys just know what they're looking for. They know their philosophy of like all these different considerations of, there could have been times he was like, oh, I could have stopped it here or whatever. And like Gastelum came up to him at some point and said like, thanks for letting the whole fight play out, because there were moments where,
towards the end where Gastelum
got dropped. Yeah. And it would have been reasonable in other scenarios for him to stop the fight. But Gaston was grateful because, you just want to like fight it out and you want to be able to recover. And just so it was super interesting because he's like, man, he doesn't just ref the fights and then forgets about it. Like he looks back.
He knew what happened. Yeah,
like moment by moment. So I was like, that was cool to me. And I'm like, I think some of your favorite fights, like you should. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 2 is another one where like that's a super close fight. And anytime I've like been like, what do I feel like watching? I'll throw that on. I'm like, fuck, that's a good fight.
Yeah.
Like, and there were moments like some of the other fights we've talked about where like Conor had more knockdowns. Nate Diaz had more moments where you're like, Conor's about to get finished.
Yeah.
Where like he just looks like he's like, like taking shots, like he's like desperately running away or whatever. It's just that, so yeah, how do you judge that? I don't know, because, one person gets on the brink of finishing, like other people might have stepped in and stopped the fight,
Yeah.
But Conor had more knockdowns, which is like, I don't know if there's a 10-8. That's more of a boxing thing, right? The automatic like knockdown.
I believe so. I'm not. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know. No one really knows. Yeah.
You're like, you like boxing too? I'm like, kind of.
Yeah.
There's this, there's more ways to win with MMA, and
I like it so much more.
What about the glove controversy with Tyson Fury, Wilder?
Yes. I mean,
he was a little desperate to come up with an excuse, right?
Yeah. Oh, was Wilder really running with that? He was.
Yeah. I mean, well, people in his camp were, and it just seemed like, I think it was hard for him to get, like, I haven't heard direct answers, but he's kind of gone from like, my legs were tired to this, to everybody knows that wasn't me. And,
yeah,
kind of like Tyron Woodley sounded when he like got beat by Kamaru Usman. It's like, everybody knows that wasn't me. It's kind of a way to be like, what? I didn't get beat that bad. My doppelganger did,
Yeah. Well, it would have been believable for Tyron too until this.
Right. Until the last one. It's like, yeah, dude, there's this,
No, the Fury changed his whole style up. So that's why I don't think it's as much the gloves, because the first fight, Fury's like boxing him. The second fight, Fury's like, I'm coming to get you. There's no decision.
Yeah. And that was what I thought was
that too.
Brilliant. Yeah. Because he was like, he took his ability to be at range away. I mean, kind of like it reminded me of the Gastelum Till fight, because he like smothered him, when you have somebody with knockout power, like Gastelum hits fucking hard. You know what I mean? For a small guy, like he could knock anybody out, I think, in that division if you get within his range. So Fury was doing that. He's as you said, clinched up every time, right?
Yeah.
So every time he's going to throw back, he's coming in. He would see that happening, rush in, land a shot, and then clinch up, and just frustrated the hell out of him.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy. And Wilder just couldn't really hit him either. Fury's
because I mean, he couldn't hit him the first fight, except that by backing up and backing up and backing up. Like, what did he like? He got him when he was like ducking down, right? He almost like
dude, it was fucking crazy.
He like had an uppercut, and then got him as he was going back. But it was like almost like a freak occurrence, but it's like, if you're never backing up or dodging, if you're running into it, into the fire, then you take that away. So I thought that was a brilliant, and you know what's funny? His dad called it. He was like, watch what he's going to do. He's going to knock Wilder out. He's going to like come after him. He's going to do this. And everyone's like, yeah, that's bullshit. But
yeah, I think his dad called the round too, didn't he?
It wouldn't surprise me because like I remember watching the clip in retrospect, and whoever was listening to him like clearly wasn't really, you know what I mean? Like he just
they all kind of say that, like, oh, I'm gonna knock him out. Yeah,
but it was like, holy shit, he totally called it and really knows his kid. And what he's capable of. So
what do you think about Tyson trying to come back? Did you see that or wanting to?
Yeah, he's scary. It's funny because when he was on Joe Rogan, he was like, oh, I can't really box. I can't really train like that. My ego's going to get back. And then it's like, wait a second. A month later, you're like, but yeah, I still think, I mean, just looking at how he moves, it just doesn't seem like he
fucking crazy, dude.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's
so fast.
Yeah. That's like I think it's John Jones said he'd box him or something like that, and I was like,
yeah, because he was like,
I don't watch. If it's just pure boxing, like, Tyson. I mean, he's a, you know what I'm saying? He's, I don't know.
Yeah, he has the style where, like, what I think is so cool about Tyson is just that, like, that's the entire style. And I always think about this when I'm like, if I wanted to learn striking or whatever, like, I would love to have a coach that would be like, let me look at your arms and how you move, and then I'm going to come up with style based on that, because that's what Tyson had. And like, even like when you watch these amazing strikers, like I always feel like the best of the best have a style that's suited to them, like Muhammad Ali or Conor McGregor or like Floyd Mayweather. They build their whole careers around styles that are best for them. And I feel like Tyson was like, he's undersized and shorter than most of the guys he was going up against. And his weapon to get in, this peekaboo style where you're just coming under everything and just showing, boom.
Yeah, man. Because I was thinking about it too back when the Wilder Fury stuff was going on. Because like I was like, well, Tyson's like 5'10", like Wilder's what, like 6'7"? He's like huge.
Yes.
I was like, that's crazy, like difference from like this guy was like the most dominant like heavyweight champion at the time, and then like now you look at this guy's a heavyweight champion. It's like, who wins? Like, I don't know. It was
but you can't necessarily say that one's better than the other. I mean, although when Tyson fought Lennox Lewis is really tall, right? Like
he's a big
or something like that. But you saw how he was just a great classic, like, he kept him at jab distance the entire time, and just never, like, Tyson could never get. But that's also, like, to me, kind of a different Tyson. You know what I mean? Like, by the time we saw that fight, it's like he looked like he was on medication, and just like, it wasn't the same fucking caged animal that we saw or whatever. We never, got to see that fight in their prime. But yeah, you can't necessarily say that because he's 5'10" that he wouldn't be able to knock any of those dudes out just because he's so quick and moves in. And like the big knock on Deontay Wilder is like, he doesn't move that well. He just hits super hard. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like, he's kind of like awkward on his feet, because that's another lifetime of like, you look at Lomachenko and his, here how his dad is like, made him like
and stuff.
Dance. Yeah, exactly. And you see that because he just like his feet, he has this, connection to footwork like any professional soccer player would, where that's carrying him just all around, and it just makes it look so effortless.
Which is crazy on Wilder's part too, to be at that level, like literally the fucking champ, and you're kind of just I'm not trying to discredit any of his work or anything, but
but he started late too. I mean, that's the thing. It's like he's been, it's like Francis Ngannou, where it's like he's enough of a freak athlete where it's like MMA sounds good, but give me 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's even just knocking people out. Like he's gotten submissions off people and seems to have a relatively well-rounded game, except for, like Stipe dominated him. I think the one thing that's really hard to do that people always say is like, if you didn't grow up wrestling and you go up against a really good wrestler, like understanding how to manage your energy and just like get up from the bottom, shit like that. Like that's what Stipe had on him. Like he was able to dodge the big shots, control him, and Francis has probably just never been in just like a wrestling match before.
1,000%.
That's someone who's able to take him down and control him in any way, and it's fucking exhausting trying to get up.
Yeah, it's like with jiu-jitsu is like like I could muscle like the little guys off me, you know, but I'm
Yeah.
dead tired when I get up. So it's like finding the right spots you can rest, you know, to conserve your energy, you know, because there are spots where like, okay, I can hold him here, catch a breather, and then make my move when he goes here, whatever. Francis didn't have that experience. He kind of gassed out. On top of the wrestling, obviously, like you said.
Yeah, and Stipe is like a state level. Like you kind of forget these guys. Like you look in their background, so it's like, oh right, Stipe was Golden Gloves. Oh right, Stipe was like a, you know, I don't know if state champion, but at least an elite wrestler in Ohio, which is an elite wrestling state. And it's like it's like California. Like you can't even make it to the state championships in California without like being insanely good. You know?
Did you grow up out there?
Yeah, I wrestled in California. Like I only wrestled for 2 years. But you know, faced some guys who were top in the state and just saw that like, you know, the best guy that I faced like would go to state and potentially like lose, you know, fucking 2 matches in a row and be out. Like to place top 8. My little brother got like 3rd in the North Coast section, made it to state, and like I remember the one dude from our high school who like brought him in because like at the end of the season, like when you're preparing for like the sectional tournament to then qualify for state, they brought in the last dude who like placed in state. His name was Christian Hupfeld, and he placed at the 205 or 215 pound class. He mauled me like a fucking bear. You know what I mean? And I was like wrestling at heavyweight. Like he came in and just like we're talking about earlier, where like he wasn't so much the technique, his aggression was just like he came in and he just like grabbed me by the head and was like shaking me around to the point where I'm just like, oh, you know, like I just, you know, you just want to fucking quit because it was just like this next level fucking aggression. I didn't even realize you could do that. You know, you almost like you learn how to wrestle and do certain things, and like you kind of think like, oh, I'm setting up this and like dancing around. You forget that somebody can come in and just like grab your fucking neck and borderline like slap you in the face. Like, you know, there's this gray area of aggression within wrestling where it's like you can't punch somebody, you can't slap somebody, but you can like slap them around the neck hard enough that it's going to make a sound.
Yeah.
And then put all your weight into fucking dragging them to the ground or whatever. And so he was able to, like, it was just my understanding of like, oh, this is the kind of guy who can go to the, you know, to place in state because, and he was like almost borderline retarded. You know what I mean? Like he like talked like the dude had a sling blade. It's like, oh, well, I get in there and I describe by the, like, there was something off about him.
Yeah, the retard string.
Not give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I never would have wanted to have a conversation with him outside the wrestling room, but clearly like, would it, you know, you put him in on a wrestling mat, you're like, see that guy? Take him down and control him. He's like, yes, sir, gonna do that. And I think that's, you know, again, that's who should be going into MMA.
My boy Joe at Jiu-Jitsu's like that because, like I said, I'm a bigger guy, so like I won't use all my strength on guys sometimes because it's like I know I'll hurt them.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound like I'm not trying to dick ride myself or anything like that. It's just like
no, and that's what you should. I mean, and that probably works against you. It's like
yeah, because I'm one of those skills.
Instinct to like not bully people. I'm like, you're like this guy was like he clearly had no apprehension about bullying the shit out of whoever was in front of him physically.
Yeah.
And pushing the limits of that sport just without, and you're like, oh, are you okay? Like I've had anytime I've been in front of a guy like that, like they'll bring in these bigger guys and like I'm like, oh, you're successful because there's no apprehension about physically injuring me.
Yeah. Yep. That's my boy Joe too. And like, I like it because I'm like, oh fuck, I have to like turn up on Joe right now because Joe's just fucking like giving me his all. Like fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's same thing with like a guy can be smaller. Like I've wrestled guys who are like, you know, 160 or 170 and are still as strong as I am. You're like, oh shit. There's these kind of like that. I think that's why there's these like the toughest weight classes are like 155, 170, right?
Yeah.
In the UFC, arguably, and I think it's just because there's so many guys who weigh that much that you get a guy like Kamaru Usman or whatever, who's just this like physical specimen, he's 170 at some point during, you know, the weekend, but probably weighs closer to 200 and is just like, you know, like most guys can't keep that level of body fat and still function. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he's just all muscle and all strength and just, I always say he looks like Dalsing when he fucking like double legs people. He's got him up against a cage and he just like reaches down and taps people up. It's like, how the fuck did he makes it look effortless. But I do think there's just, you know, some guys have that muscular makeup. The one guy I do know who went into MMA who was like, I wrestled with him for a couple years, and he was just one of these dudes who could do like, he had a kind of a Mike Tyson body where he's like a little bit more compact, maybe like 5'10", 5'11", but like, you know, one of these guys who like, they start weightlifting and like 3 weeks later you can bench 3 plates, you know, where it's just like, you're that dude, you know, you have those fast twitch fibers ready to go. Who could do like a standing backflip and like, or he could jump over a picnic table like lengthwise with a running start. He could jump over and then like standing broad jump over, you know, just the width of it. Yeah, you know. So again, I think some of those guys are just starting from that point.
How did he do in MMA?
I saw him. He must have quit at some point, but anytime like this was like 2010, he was posting pictures of him just like beating the shit out of people, like like where you just look physically. And he would always, you know, one of these guys will always be like, oh yeah, I beat up this dude and that dude and nobody was there. Like, you know, like guys love to tell like I beat someone's ass stories, but this is like the only dude who would tell a story about it. I'm like, I believe you because you know, I look at you and you know you're telling a story about beating up 5 dudes or whatever, and you know, I fully believe that. He had a screw loose in his head. He got kicked out of our school for showing his dick to a teacher. Like as a dare, you know, he was just like, someone's like, show your dick to the teacher. And he just went up and like whipped his dick out. And it's like, you know, like again, got him expelled immediately. But
I turned my life to fighting.
Right. He wasn't dumb. Like he was smart. He just had something. I don't know. I remember he used to show up like, you know, fucking high on LSD to wrestling practice and shit. So his heart wasn't in wrestling, but I saw some pictures of him just that made me feel sorry for the guy who signed up for this amateur fight or whatever. So I don't know if it ever went pro, but like I was like, if you pursued that, you know, I almost just think he was almost too nice of a guy. Like he was a sweetheart in real life, and I'm like, and could maybe do other things. You know, was like smart enough, and I think his parents were professionals. So maybe guys like that, where you're like, oh, you know, you get dissuaded from that because your back isn't against the wall, or you're not like from Dagestan. That's like, you know, the only fucking way out. Or Conor McGregor is like, I'm either this or a plumber.
Dude,
you know?
Dagestan is like America's worst nightmare. Like Russian Muslims, like Jesus Christ. Like
I know. And it's crazy. They say that some crazy, because it's not just like, you know, you think of Russia and like there's this, obviously they have like an incredible pedigree for wrestling, but it's like a village in Dagestan where Khabib is from has produced some crazy number of world. Have you heard this too? Like
like the mountain people they call
it's produced some number of world champion wrestlers. So it's not even just like Russia or Dagestan. It's like specific to exactly where Khabib's from. They just have this lineage of wrestling that's like, you know, insane. And you believe it because you're like, yeah, there's no other fucking. That's all they do. Like that's what your life is. He drives a Toyota Camry and lives with his parents and beats the shit out of people.
Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. He's an absolute savage. I think it was during the Ferguson and Khabib presser before it got canceled, whatever. Ferguson was like, "You know how to street fight?" He's like, "You're from America. You don't know street fight." He's
right,
like,
yeah. That was
like,
funny because that was like the first time we've ever seen Khabib get like personally offended.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome.
Even when McGregor was like saying shit about his village and his family and his wife, like Khabib was just more like, yeah, you'll see. I'm gonna humble you. You'll see.
Yeah.
When Tony said I'll beat you in a street fight, Khabib like was like, fuck you. You don't know anything else.
Yeah, dude.
Like, he was like upset.
I was listening to he was on an interview with Brett Okamoto afterward, and he's kind of said the same thing. He's like, we never see you like not. I don't know, just upset like that. He's like, this guy makes no fucking sense. Like half the shit he says, he's like, but Tony is kind of everywhere.
Yeah, I know. He's hilariously like,
wow, he's
incoherent.
Crazy.
You can just tell he's got like a fire under. Like when I think about him, I'm like, that dude is kind of manic. You know what I mean? It doesn't surprise me that he's that he had those issues with his wife and that he's kind of paranoid because people like that, like he just seems like his motor is going constantly and he's saying shit that like makes sense to him, but he's like on a perpetual tangent, and that's kind of how he trains and how he fights. It's like everything's like an improvisational tangent that he's obviously totally consumed, you know, by fighting. I do think he could have been close with Khabib. Like the Gaethje thing was unfortunate. It's like, fuck, man, like Gaethje is just this like the way, to not be able to prepare for that. And even just like the fact that Gaethje's been making these improvements so rapidly over his past 3 fights.
Yeah.
Terrible matchup for him because Khabib's not as good of a striker, I think, as Gaethje is.
Not at all. Yeah.
He's not bad, obviously.
Disrespect it could be, but
yeah, like I do think people will be like, oh, he sucks at boxing. I'm like, no, he can actually like his like against Iaquinta when he kept hitting him with the jab.
Yeah.
Like he's got a clean jab, and he obviously
he actually did stand up with Iaquinta for a minute.
Yeah.
For a while,
and to me, they're like, oh, he couldn't take Iaquinta down. I'm like, he gave up on it. He didn't fucking like he was like, I'm totally controlling this fight. And then he kept just like circling and peppering because Iaquinta was leaning forward so heavily.
I don't want to watch that fight now.
Yeah, it was it was pretty interesting because but then again, like I just look at it, it's like Khabib will take you down if he and put more effort into it if he respects your striking. But I think he just got, to me, it looked like he was using Iaquinta for target practice. He was like, I'm using this for like striking
He's like
practice.
just testing out some shit. He's like,
but it impressed me because I'm like, his jab actually was pretty quick. He kept peppering his nose, like he fucked up Iaquinta's nose. But yeah, I really hope we see that someday, the Tony versus Khabib thing, just to see like what happens on, when a takedown happens. But I'm actually more excited now about, hopefully we'll get to see the Khabib Gaethje fight.
Yeah.
Because I know there's rumors now that
Khabib told Gaethje to fight Conor or something. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that, and that makes sense because like I kind of assume like the guys under that umbrella of the dominance MMA, Ali, Abdelaziz, like they all kind of seem to hang out with each other and get along. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably like Ali's design on things is like we're a family. He's very defensive over his. The fighters that he reps, it's like we'll cut you off from ESPN if Ariel Helwani is like asking the wrong question. But I think it's kind of cool because they all like hang out together.
Questions too.
What's that?
So it was just crazy because some of them seem like normal questions that like, hey,
I didn't understand fully. Like I understand he was coming after Usman. Is that what he said? Or who was it that he was?
I think Gilbert Burns is dominance MMA as well. And then
he is.
About somebody else getting a title shot against Usman.
Gotcha.
Edwards maybe it was or something like that. And then and Ali was like,
Ali's fucking crazy, but like I think it's kind of cool that he's like he trains in MMA. He does jiu-jitsu and he like spars with these dudes. He's like in the shit with them.
He's fucking Ali's the shit for sure.
Yeah, he's like
famous too.
I know hearing him talk about like just his general approach. Like he's like, when I go in the room with Dana, I want to fucking rob him for everything.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. He's a shit.
So it is interesting hearing him and talk about Conor because he's like the back and forth man. Like Conor normally clowns most people, but like I gotta say, like Khabib and Ali will kind of like get these last words on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can see why he's Khabib's in his head so much because Khabib will always like try to say some shit and then be like, what's his latest thing? And it's not even totally like shit talking. He's like, go fight Islam Makhachev, Khabib's cousin or whatever. Then you can fight Khabib. It's like, he probably would do that. Like Khabib, if he said he would do it after you fight him, but like Conor has nothing to win from it. And even like doing that would be like an admission of like, I want Khabib so bad. I'll find his like unknown, undefeated cousin to get this fight. But it's like, it puts him in, he's like, you want this? Okay, do that.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's no way Conor would do that, but knowing that it is like like if he did, he would probably get the fight with the rematch with Khabib, especially if he beat Islam. But it's pretty masterful because he's playing all of his guys against each other. He's like,
dude, yeah.
Oh, you don't want to do this to Gaethje? Well, you can't fight Khabib,
Yeah.
Like he uses the fact that he has like all these top guys to like as like a union almost.
It really, yeah. Honestly, yeah. I mean, good for him too, because that's kind of crazy. Because UFC is a hard.
Yeah, he clearly like he gets money for all these dudes. Like Justin Gaethje's paid well, and
it never conflicts too. Like you said, they're all kind of like tight. They're all like kind of cool with each other.
Yeah. Even though you'd want to see Usman fighting Khabib, but that he doesn't have any desire to do that. Somebody was like, oh, GSP. I know Habib would fight GSP.
Oh man, I want to see that one so bad because
Yeah.
I think Tony and GSP are like kind of only guys unless you're catching them or clipping them. I think there's only two guys who really like deal with the type of pressure or can do stuff off their back or just I don't
Yeah.
that could be Habib at least in my mind. I can't.
Yeah. GSP would be the one guy who's like got the similar style of like, I'm wrestling to control you and take you down. I was arguing with somebody online the other day about GSP not being able to. They're like, no way he could make 155. I'm like, and they were using this like appeal to authority, like, I've been around fighters my whole life. There's no way. I'm like, oh yeah, GSP personally?
Yeah.
You see him,
people are like that.
Wait. Like you're his fucking coach or something. Yeah. I think he could. I think he potentially that would be, in other words, the only fight. Like Kamaru Usman's calling for GSP. GSP's not going to fight Kamaru Usman because there's just nothing to get. It's like, even though he is, he's starting to make a case for the fact that he's the best welterweight, he's just not big enough of a name.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if he could fight for the 155-pound title, then you would have 3 belts, which no one's ever done.
Yeah.
And beat an undefeated guy, which
You know what's whack too is they're saying they're not giving GSP that fight because he ran off with the middleweight belt. Yeah. But they're letting DC fight for the belt, knowing it's
100%. Yeah, there's. I think it has more to do with the risk that Habib gets beaten,
loses his name. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, because like DC,
that's what we're here for. Like, I'm gonna pay you a fuck ton of money to see that because I want to see it.
Right. Yeah. But Habib is basically, like, except for the fact that he's potentially not fighting, like, I mean, it's crazy how big of a star, like the amount of followers and attention he got after the Conor McGregor fight. Like, because I was following him when he had like a couple million people, followers. And that shot up. I mean, it was like he got like 10 million followers in like a few weeks.
Oh, yeah.
After the Conor fight.
I interviewed Cody Stamen. He's like one of my first interviews I've done the show. And I think when I interviewed him, he was like at like 19,000 followers. But then all that stuff happened with his brother. Yeah. And then I hit him up the other day, text him, just keep his head up because he lost that featherweight fight. Whatever, the last weekend. He's at 31,000 followers. I'm like, damn, it's kind of crazy. Like, I know. It's you get on these, people start to take notice, and there's so many fights, like good ass fights too, that like happen while guys are coming up. You don't know their names.
Yes, that's why I always watch the prelims. So you asked me before if I watch UFC. I'm like, yes, it's basically like the only sport that, like, I could watch any, like, I'll watch basketball, I'll watch football. I do enjoy it. Like, I enjoy watching basketball, but I don't give a shit about like the unknown dudes in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, versus in the UFC. If there's a good card on, I will do what I can to like block out the day to watch the prelims, to scout those guys out. Like, I watched Sean O'Malley when he was on, the Contender Series, or was that Dana White looking for a fight, or I forget what it's called, but like,
I think it's on the Contender Series. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it. It's like, it's cool to see those guys and be able to be like, I was watching you in real time.
Yeah. Like Zabit and Calvin Kattar fought. I didn't even know that. It sounds shitty to say.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, right now, if I heard that matchup, I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, I'd love to see that fight. And like, oh, they already fought? Like, what the hell? Like,
right. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, that's the beauty of the UFC. And I think the one thing where you go, fighters don't get paid like boxing, but the devil's advocate position for the UFC is like, well, the brand is bigger than any individual. It's bigger than Conor. It's bigger than any superstar, because the brand is so good that I know that pretty much any fight on the early prelims could potentially be the best fight of the evening between two world-class athletes who we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
And like, that doesn't always end up happening, but I watch in the hopes of that.
Yeah.
And some crazy things end up happening, and, you end up watching a guy who you can follow through. Because at some point, like, you're watching Conor McGregor on Fight Night. And that's even how I got into MMA. Somebody showed me like some highlights of this dude. I'm like, oh, that's this is what's going on in the UFC right now. Like,
yeah,
I'd watched it, back in like the Tank Abbott, Vitor Belfort days. When Vitor Belfort was like 205, just roided to the gills, fucking people up. And then didn't watch for many years. And then like, so a guy like that gets you back into it.
Yeah.
An exciting fighter. and they're always trying to get people, you know. There was some guy that Dana, did you watch the, I think it was on the prelims maybe, but he brought in a guy who was like, I was at my kid's birthday party and one of like his friends like showed me on his phone like the highlight reel, and then they brought that
the
guy in.
from Abu Dhabi. He just fought.
Yeah, and they were saying, so yeah, that was it.
Sweet too.
Is he fighting again? Maybe there's another guy who's like has like a week-long turnaround. It may not be this guy, but like that guy. Yeah, he was like, because there's not any Arab champions, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
Like so. Well, yeah, there's only like 8 and 4 in the women's. So it's not like there's that many. But like maybe even beyond that, it's like you forget like, oh yeah, like Wei Li Zhang or whatever is this big deal because like there's not that many Chinese fighters or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is in their best interest to like find a guy who's really good from a different part of the world, and then everybody's tuning in because of that. So I forget that guy's name, but he looked fucking great.
Yeah, there's another no-name guy too. The guy who knocked out Uzdemir. That guy like fucking sick.
Yeah,
that's fucking dope, dude. He was literally letting Uzdemir like no times to hitting him like clean. I'm like, bro, this guy's fucking crazy.
I have, what's funny is I can't, like, I watched that fight, but I can't picture him in my head right now. I can picture him, Uzdemir getting knocked out and being like, holy fuck, like,
I don't know his name.
Uzdemir, I mean, because the last fight Uzdemir had was what, with Reyes, or at least the last, like, he had like
he won that one with Reyes too. I thought that was
I remember watching that and thinking, like, I was sort of surprised that they gave it to him. It was close, obviously, but like, Uzdemir had like taken down Reyes, and even though Reyes is a wrestler. Right?
Yeah. Don't even get me started on that one. Yeah, because I was so pissed at John Jones. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like Uzdemir guy down,
Yeah.
Also, element surprised with that one maybe too though, because Uzdemir.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like Gustafsson took down John Jones. It's like if you're not expecting it, you're just it takes you half a second. But where was that guy from? Do you remember where that guy's from?
Man, he's from it'll be blank space on air, honestly. I have no clue. I know, but I won't be able to. Where the fuck is
I'm gonna see if I can look it up real quick. Vulcan, because now I feel bad.
I know.
I never would have guessed this. Jiri Prochazka. I was acting like it was on the tip of my tongue or something.
Yeah,
I never would have.
Where's he from?
Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
So this dude. Fucking
gonna be a stud.
Knocked him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 27, 3-1. Okay, and I'm about to show this guy.
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
Yep.
No, it's funny because I was like, I watched that entire fight. I'm like, I think he has a beard, maybe? I don't know. Could not pick him out of the lineup.
Do you have any projects or anything like that coming up that we should be on the lookout for?
I actually just got done doing some voiceover for these, like, using my impression game for this like series that's like political rap battles, So I voiced like Mitch McConnell and Mike Pence and a few other politicians. So that's really what's been, a lot of shit shuts down during the pandemic.
Yeah. Is it the one that's on YouTube? Is it that series or no? The epic rap
battles? It is on YouTube. It's not like Rap Battles of History. It's a new one. That's like well done. I mean, I've always like they showed me some of the animation while I was in there, but I did like 3 or 4 episodes from that. I honestly I remember I did Mike Pence and Mitch McConnell for the recent one, but I like when I sent in the audition, I did like every single voice, like so I like literally forgot which ones I actually ended up doing. I think I did like 5 of them, but I just did like I'm like all right, I'm gonna because every different voice was like I get more money for it, so I'm like I'm just giving you 30 of these, and if I get a few of them, more money for me. So yeah, I got that. Let's see, I got a movie coming out. We're doing some more shooting for it soon coming up. It's called The Blonde Experiment. And I actually really am excited about this role that I have because I'm like a fitness guru. It's going to be a funny comedy where like, basically, the premise is like these girls who like feel like they're being ignored, the brunettes, like they feel like they aren't getting attention or dates. They like dye their hair blonde, and the premise is like everyone thinks they're like different people, and they like start to get access to like all of this high profile shit. And so I'm like the owner of this like buttocks bar studio, and they like one of the girls becomes like my like featured like instructor, and I'm like, and she's like my muse now, like, and she'd been going there the entire time, and then she shows up with blonde hair, and I'm like super infatuated with her. And so it's just a sort of the kind of role that I love to play, which is like, you know, playing like an egomaniac narcissist for the sake of comedy, you know, magnifying my own natural narcissism. So look for that probably in mid 2021. The Blonde Experiment will be coming out.
Okay.
And other than that, you know, I stay writing stuff. Like I'm working on a vampire comedy for myself that I could start in.
I gotta get my boy Chris to hit you up because like I feel like he could do sketch. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm always down to meet up with people. I love doing,
Yeah.
you know, making little content for YouTube and stuff like that. So I don't really count that. Like I'm always doing like little sketches and stuff like that. But you know, voiceover films, stuff like that will be the, you know, the IMDb credits.
You were fucking killing it on those audition tapes, all those different voices, like the Bruce Jenner one, the Mark Wahlberg one.
Thank you.
Dude. Or even Markeisha in the skits, dude. That one's hilarious too. 50 Cent was like, looking, he's like, "Yes, you are." Or whatever he said.
Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's fucking
crazy. Yeah, thanks for checking them out, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Man. I'm definitely gonna clip them up and put some in here, whatever I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
I do gotta get going because my laptop's at 3%. I don't want to lose this. This footage.
Absolutely. Get off, save it up, and we'll do it again sometime.
Dude, for sure, man. We'll do some fight predictions, fucking whenever.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Whatever, man. Hell yeah, dude. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. It's fun.